en Palantir.
Abend und Palantir.
Sauwet Tuament en Palantir.
Sauwet Tuament en Palantir.
Audu Auma.
Audu Auma.
Keti Paheru.
Keti Paheru.
The translation is thus.
Give yourself to nectar daily. Keep yourself for nectar daily. And do it tomorrow as you do it today.
We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father, who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive, and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything, yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Neptune Ra, who is the light of the heavens, light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Mahati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who align to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibilities in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akiru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality, and in our moments of crises, in the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down. So it is, and so shall it be. Amen.
Ma'as.
Ma'akiru.
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 Let's see.
Still on that,
It's
sir.
like translation. Credit to that to you. Take you.
Good thing. Facebook, YouTube, can y'all hear okay? Can I get comments or thumbs up so I know you guys can hear? Also, Facebook and YouTube, I'd love to see the roll call. Let's do the roll call.
That's right. We on the way.
Yahweh!
So once again, greetings to the righteous and respectable chat. I grew fond to the chat over the few years since COVID. So they know the protocol. So what's the roll call? What are your manners? Who are you and where are you hailing from? So those are our official guests that's not in the room.
Do on that, sir.
Before we get started, I just want to share some thoughts. Sometimes when I take a few moments to think about the Temple of Anu, who we've become in our journey, and I come to the conclusion that we have an incredible brain trust amongst us as a community. For instance, we have Wabet Kisa with her studies and her leadership and her direction in astrology, which has been a tremendous resource to the community, which our community has shown great appreciation for. We have Wab Mentura with his incredible knowledge of not just health, but just his leadership and direction in personal matters, as well as being many people's confidant in the temple, and that's very important in our community. Has shown tremendous appreciation for that. We have the cover for the mic. I'm getting too much closing. The black cover. We have the black cover for the mic because it's doing too much popping. And also, we have our very own Session Sue, whose skill set is authenticating and confirming our self-proclaimed authenticity, just to make sure we're always in line with our ancestors. And then pause. I had to say that. Gotta have fun. It's nice day, sun is out. But anyway, then lastly, you have Hemet and I. What we bring to the table is a sense of transparency and vulnerability. And if you're honest with yourself, we have a sense of transparency and vulnerability not commonly seen on any of the platforms. Because if we're honest, most people on most platforms, and this is no disrespect, it's just a fact of life, most people are on most platforms trying to convince us of this ideal of our ancestors as though they made no mistakes. Mm-hmm. And that's untrue, and it hurts us in the long run. Because if they did everything right, we wouldn't be up in the situation that we are in now. And that's no disrespect to the ancestors. It's just a fact of life. And if it's not that, they're making it seem like this special knowledge that they have themselves has made themselves somehow ideal. And that hurts them more the back end also. So when you think it is transparency and you think it is vulnerability, sometimes it's a turn off for people. And you have to think, should it be a turn off or should it be a turn on so they could tune in to what it looks like when sometimes you fall off and get back on. A lot of people don't get to witness that when you fall off and get back on. We're living in a time where life is kicking people's butt and people are so self-defeated that they don't know how to get back up. Some people are actually scared to get back up. Some people found comfort in staying down and they no longer believe that we can be up because it's been so long since we've seen any true standard amongst our people. And I bet you, and I guarantee you, whatever standard you could find in history, they had just as many flaws as we did. And sometimes we get, we project perfection on our history and our past, and it causes us to be less forgiving of ourselves. When they had to handle many of the same issues themselves. They had health concerns. They had concerns of getting old and things about getting sick, and they had concerns about family, being cut off of family, friends, all of the same stuff. They weren't perfect. If that was the case, we wouldn't have those texts that we have telling us how to deal with the stuff. Right. So this is the human condition since the beginning of time. Our human condition is always about the reunification of the self, or all the selves. Yeah. Since time immemorial, those who got up here in front of people that we all loosely call leaders, their lives has always been kept secret and protected. And then when you find out something about them, then people are heartbroken and disappointed and almost act betrayed. We're finding out this out in like 2024 with a lot of the celebrities. You idealize them. I don't know why people idealize them anyway. They're just actors. And people don't know how to distinguish the actor from the role that they're playing. A lot of times they be disappointed. You see your favorite actor, you see them offset, they got a different hairstyle. You're like, oh, wait, why does he look like a nerd? Why does he look like that? And they're just regular, and they're not their character or whatever. Nowadays, in our time that we're living in, you get to see how people become who they are in a lot of time with this social media. It's an experiment. So things that were once kept away from people is just all out in the open. So you see how people become who they are, and you also see the fall from grace. And what's happening is a lot of people with all the opinions are the ones bird watching. They like bird watching like they ain't in the same trap that we all in. So what they should be doing is paying attention that who's using the tools to overcome the situation and coming out on the back end better than they were before they fell from grace. Y'all understand? Sure. So with that being said, the session Sue and I had a conversation last night about cross-cultural studies and just studying things like Sufism and Kabbalah and things like that, and looking at what masters of other traditions do to constantly reinforce and enrich those traditions. And a lot of times on our side of things, not necessarily the comedic side of things, the conscious side of things, people still tend to stay on the surface of things. History is cool, but it's not just all about history. Language is cool, but it's all not just about language. So we see this propensity of people in our community. For instance, like what we were studying, things like I said, Kabbalah or Sufism, they have different layers of meaning. At the end of the day, everybody's making stuff up. In our community, we have people have the propensity to make stuff up, but our ancestors, they made stuff up around the fundamental structure or understanding about life. They wasn't just making stuff up. So there's every generation, there's layers and layers and layers upon that same understanding, and there's always direct and indirect connections within that system. So the making up has a purpose to it. It ain't just making up because Spirit told me this. So you got certain people in our community, they just make up stuff and they be like, oh, this is the ancient Kemetic knowledge, or the ancestors told me this. And then when you do real research into the culture or even the language, as y'all know, the language is the DNA of culture, right? So if the language is the DNA of culture, it tells you what they thought about things. So a lot of the stuff that people in our community are making up, I ain't gonna say make up, or they say they got their downloads or uploads from spirit and they're saying it's Kemetic and they're saying it's ancient knowledge, it actually contradicts what our ancestors were saying about what their own thoughts and beliefs about life and certain things were. So now in respect to the people that's making things up or getting their uploads and downloads, I believe all of that. So to be fair to those people that get uploads and downloads, it behooves you to learn the language so you understand the filter of how Kemetic ancestors spoke their truth. Because I'm sure they're getting something as an upload or download, but it might not be coming from Kemetic spirit. We got to go to the Bible. What the Bible says, when you see that spirit, test that spirit to see if it's of God or not, or the divine or not. So just because somebody said they got an upload or a download, and just because in this physical form and in this life they have a attraction to Kemet, doesn't mean that information that they're bringing through is Kemetic. So it might be coming from their indigenous Native American ancestors. It might be coming from their Nigerian or their Khan ancestors. It might be coming from that white boy Celtic or Celtic, what they call them, Celtic or Celtics in them. So the onus is on them to determine what actual ancestors that are coming from, because the Kemetic culture has a structure. They have a clear framework of what they believe in. So it has to line up. So with that being said, in our conversation, we were just talking about different layers of the Kemetic tradition and understanding. It's called initiatory language or initiatory language. So he was talking about the 42 principles of Ma'at and what that is. So now our experience of the 42 Tetra and Ma'at, the 42 declarations of innocence, that was given to us about 40, 50 years ago from Dr. Ben. And since then, you've seen, how many of y'all got the posters in your house? We got the posters, we got them on our desks, on walls, and all of that. And how it was given to us through the likes of Dr. Ben and Milana Karenga, how it was given to us back then. It was given to us in the context of this was the official answer to the Ten Commandments, right? Because back then they was teaching everybody got everything from us, especially Kemet. Everything comes from Kemet. They got this from us. So the way we got it was just this list that was supposed to be the evidence that they stole those 10. I wouldn't even say they stole it. They probably were influenced. People share culture all the time. How do you steal morals? It's immoral to steal a moral. You're like, oh, that's a good idea. I won't punch you in the face. So why are you not punching him in the face now? You stole that from me. You know, like that sounds crazy, right? Why are you treating your mother with respect? It's just the thing to do if it resonates. So we got it in this context that this is the definitive answer, and we was all pontificating and walking with big chest. I'm not going against the 42. We're not going in this direction. Like, oh, he's taking the 42 away from him. The 42 is safe, but we just got it in a certain context. But in 50 years, nobody ever asked the question, like, what is that 42? What was the original context that it was given? So now he wants to have a conversation about the original context and how it was given in contrast to how it was given to us 50 years ago, also in connection to how we use it now and how we've interjected in Hinek Ma'at, our presentation of Ma'at, and how understanding this connection and contrast to further enrich the authenticity of our practice. So in our conversation, he was like, put me in, coach. You know, like, because him had a provocative discussion last month. I had a provocative discussion last month. We in a new place, so we hit 3 communions. We're up. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna tap you in and let you do your thing. In light of what I said, we have a brain trust, so we got health discussions, we got astrology discussions, we got science discussions, but we also do some academic and historic discussions to further authenticate and validate what it is that we do. So without further ado, I will yield the floor to our beloved session assistants and Jenny Uncle Rod Artie Neffer. Give it up for him.
See, I'm not as tall, so I need the stand. And you know I talk with my hands as well. All right, permission for my elders and leaders to speak. All right. So, as the SIP was talking about the 42, so we do get that from the 125th chapter of the book of Going Forth into the Daylight. So where does that come from? The 42 comes from the fact that there are 42 districts, 42 districts or counties, if you will. So that's how it becomes 42. So when you go to the papyrus of Anui, I gotta make sure I say Anui because Barbara will get on me saying Ani. So whether it's the papyrus of Anui, the papyrus of Nebseni, the papyrus of Horu, the papyrus of Nakhet, there's even women who have Pertim Herus. Okay, so just as a visual, this is the 125th chapter. There's an entire text that precedes the declarations of innocence. Now, we don't like to say the negative confessions. They're declarations of innocence. So if we apply a little bit of math, a negative times a negative is a positive. So we'll call it declarations of innocence. That evolved from the pyramid text. So you have the pyramid text in which the king is saying how he is moral, he's ethical, he has not done such a thing. But then you have declarations of virtues where the king or the initiate, the person is going through the process of ancestorization, is saying, I have done this moral or ethical thing. So this is why I deserve to be revered. Okay? So this talk today is the offering formula and the declarations of virtues. So let's start with the offering formula. The offering formula is called the Hotep di Nasut. Say that. Hotep di Nasut. And it translates as the offering for which the king gives. So you got the Hotep, that's the offering, that's the giving. The di or do, okay, that's the verb meaning to give. So the Hotep, that's the actual offerings, that's the objects. And then the action is the di or the do. And then Nasut. So the offering for which the king gives there's another context to this. It's an offering which the king authorizes. Because what the king does, this is the legitimizer of the action. And the action is a ceremony, it is a ritual. So in technicality, it is the Iru Hotep di Nasut. So Iru comes from our ear, which is a verb meaning to do. It is an action. And the glyph, the sign, is an eye. So if we put this together, Irit, which means eye, the visual, which you envision, would dictate your action. So there's more philosophy behind that, the connection between envisioning and action. Okay? So the template is done by the king. So what the king does regarding the offering ritual is the template for the rest of the culture to do the exact same thing. So with the Hotep di Nasut formula, there's about 4 parts or 4 elements. So you have the introductory phrase, so which is the title, Hotep di Nasut, and then you have the name and epithets of the necher for which it is given. So typically you'll have Asar Neb Jedu, Necher Ea Neb Abiju, which translates as Asar, the Lord of Jedu, Necher Ea, the great Necher, and Neb Abiju, the Lord of Abydos. But we would say Neb Abiju or Abuja. In fact, there's a city in Nigeria called Abuja. So I found that pretty interesting. I'm not sure if that's an actual correlation, so don't quote that. Got to do the linguistics behind it. So the Necher is the divine recipient. So it begins by the king giving to the next one. Have you ever heard of reversion of offerings? So that's going to be a concept, even a philosophy behind that to guide our ethical behavior and our moral standing. So you have that first part. So it's the introductory phrase, which includes the title and the deity and titles and epithets. And then you have what's called the invocatory or invoking element and passing of offerings to an ancestor. So that's the next part. So typically you'll see DF Peret Karu. So DF Peret Karu, D or do, give. F is he, so that he may be given. Okay? So in this case, since we're talking about a male ancestor, it would be so that he may be given. Now, if it's a female ancestor, so it would be DS or DSO. So if we add some vocalization, DSO. So DS, because at the very end will be the name of the ancestor. So you have that has to be an agreement. These are rules. This is ma'at. Remember, we believe in ma'at. That also means we believe in rules, in structure, in order. So we have to follow the grammatical order because things have to agree in gender and number. And again, what is that? Balance and order again. So we can't just, and when we say the phrase make up, it's really saying having ideas that has no basis in reality. Okay? So we don't want to use ideas that have no basis in reality. How did you come to that conclusion? Test the spirit. Test the spirit, test the psychology. Psyche and spirit is actually the same word. So test the spirit, test the psyche. So you can do Asar, you can also do Offset if you like. So you can do Offset, the Nebet Pet, Mut Oret. You can do that as well. So that's Offset, the ruleress of heaven. I don't like the word queen per se, because it has a connotation of the king's primary side piece. And I don't like that context. So we would say ruleress. I like that a little bit better, okay? Because it doesn't have that history of reducing the power of a woman in her authority. So Nebet, or you could just say Nabata, you can do that as well. So Nebet Pet, so who's the ruleress of heaven, ruleress of the skies, and Mut Or, the great mother. These are actually the titles that's found in the text. And then after you have DF Peret Karu. So what is Peret Karu? So we've heard of Pertim Heru. So Pertim Heru is what? Going forth, movement. So Peret Karu means voice. So Peret Karu is the going forth of the voice, is movement of the sound. So you can translate that as invocation, because when you invoke, that means that your voice is moving forward, okay? So, and anything that follows the Peret Karu carries the legitimacy of the sound or the mentioning thereof. So when you look in the tombs and temples, the image that comes after the Peret Karu is ever present, because the image of a thing contains the spirit of a thing, which means it has the same power of the thing it is depicting. Okay? So that's the importance, or the, if you might say, the magical power behind images. Images are powerful, and it carries the spirit of that which it depicts. Therefore, when it's inside of a tomb, the ancestors are always being fed by the presence of the image that carries the power of the thing it depicts. So in the next part, we have the inventory of offerings. So the inventory of offering is Ta, Himquet, Ka'u, Abadu, Shesu, Menquit. What is that? It is bread, beer, oxen, bird, alabaster, and linen. Okay, stop. What is a Kemetic diet? We're going straight to it. So you might have people who are vegetarian. There are dietary restrictions for people who are engaged in priestly duties for a cycle. Okay? However, in general, what's being listed here is the Kemetic diet. Okay? So bread, we all like bread. Beer, yes, we drink beer or wine, etc. When you go to the pyramid text, different types of wines and beers that they can't translate them. They just have to put the vocalization dash beer because they don't know the type of beer. They have so many types. Just like today, we have so many types, wines, etc. Oxen. So what is that? That's beef. So ancient Kemet, they ate beef. Right? So the general people were meat eaters. Okay? That's a fact. Again, this comes straight from the text as evident. And abidu, which is bird. So we eat chicken, poultry, poultry.
Organic, right?
Organic. All this is organic. All this is organic because they're not putting in the chemicals and stuff that we do today. No preservatives. So when they prepare the animal, you got to get it ready right then and there. But then eventually we have the inventions of cooking, which help to preserve, the meat a little longer. Alabaster, linen. Everyone here has linen. That's very popular in ancient Kemet. Okay? Linen. So since the Old Kingdom, this has been the basic formula as far as the offerings. But then what's called the Middle Kingdom, starting in the 11th dynasty, you start getting merkut, which is oil. So what's your favorite type of oil? What kind of oils do we got? We have frankincense, cedarwood, sandalwood, myrrh, jasmine, tea tree, lemongrass. Okay? So these are the types of oils that we value, but then it is given in the ritual. Sennacher, what's that? Sennacher? Incense, okay? Incense, there's incense cones. We use incense on sticks even today. Hetapu, offerings, different types of food. Jefa'u is another word for food provisions. So you start seeing that during the Middle Kingdom. So that's your 11th and 12th dynasties of ancient Kemet. So far we have offering to the Neter, and then now we're going to the Aku, who is the ancestor, because the word Aku or Iaku is another word for ancestor. But now because of paronymy, Iaku or Iak is a word for a light or a luminous body. So there's paronymy. So the same word for ancestor is also the same word for light. So that's why when we look at movies, they have these images of people going into the light. These images, these symbolisms were already in Africa. So like when you hear the phrase Inuk Pu, Inuk Ku, Ama Imku, etc. Budge, E.A. was Budge, the early Egyptologist from the 1800s until the 1900s. He was a curator of the British Museum. He put I am that I am. So no, it is not I am that I am, because here they're trying to make it sound like it's the Bible. Okay? Then we need to get away from that. Grammatical correction. It is I. Pause. And then it's I am a ancestor who comes forth from the limbs of nature. That is the proper translation of that. Now, most would translate it as it is I am a shining being. Well, yes, but what is the Persian root? Is an ancestorization text. So it makes more sense that I'm an ancestor who's going into the light. You're going to have that paronymy, because when you go to other texts, you have the king who wishes to be on the boat of Ra or become one with Ra. So you're becoming one with the light and constantly in that cycle with that source of light, which is the sun, or maybe even the moon.
So how, for those people that were using it the other way, how should they properly say I am a shining being, that if they wanted to say that?
So if you want to say I'm a shining, you can actually use the same vocalization. So Inuk Pu, so there's actually a comma from that point. So it is I, because you're proclaiming something. It is I am a shining being. So if you want to say shining being, you can say Iaku.
Okay.
But the glyph would have to switch.
Okay.
So that was Inuk Pu?
Inuk Pu, comma, then Pu. Okay. And then you can say Yaku. So I'm a shining, it is I am a shining being. Rather than I am that I am. Because again, we're not trying to be like, with due respect, we're not trying to be like Yahweh in this case. Okay? So that's just being straight up. All right. So going on in this section, you have what's called the inventory. The inventory is wrapping up. So you have Ket Nebet, Neferet, Wabet. So that is all good and pure things. Ket, Netra'im, on which the Netra lives. So when we put this together, so far, you have the Hotep Dinasut, Asar Neb Jedu, Netra Neb Abaju, DF, Perek Keru, Ta U, Henquet, Kau, Abadu Shasu Menquet. And then it goes on to an all good and pure things for which a Netra lives. So all those things we listed, and then it's like an opening of other things, like incense, rocks, pebbles, things like that. Things that are valuable, that's pure and clean. Nothing, you don't want to give anything that's devalued, something that's dirty, or something that would defile another person or even yourself, or the sanctity of the area, the space in which you're in. So that's all good and pure things for which the Netra live. And then the last part is the ancestral recipient. So you have, in Egyptology, they'll say in ka-in. I'll propose it's na-kani. So it's na-kani, for the spirit of, na-kani, for the spirit, or towards the spirit of the recipient. Now the recipient, the ancestral recipient, will normally have a title, which is imaku. So the base, imaku, which means honored one. So if it's a male, then it's either imaku or imaki. Either one. Then if it's a woman, it's imakit, or say imakita, if you want to add some flair to it. Imakita. So, and then you have the name. So let's pick, in this case, name an ancestor.
Directly, which is my grandmother.
Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey. So Imaki Marcus Garvey. Give me another one.
Kenneth Andrew German.
Okay. Imaku. Kenneth
Andrew German.
Andrew German.
Senior.
Senior. Give me another one. Any ancestor.
Deborah Ann Duffy German.
Okay. All right. So that'd be Imakit. All right. Give me a famous one.
Malcolm X. Malcolm X.
Okay, Malcolm X. So he's Imaku, Imaki, an honored one, venerated one. And then it's followed by Ma'akaru. So Ma'akaru comes after. So it closes the titleization. So they have the title in the front and the title in the back. So they are flanked with divinity on the front and the back. That gives them that rounded protection. And so think of it that way. You want your ancestor to have the power of protection and honoration in the front of them and back of them. So when you're reading Meta Netra, when looking at these things, look at a word as a person, okay, that has three-dimensional power, three-dimensional spacing. So if I'm a word, I'm physically manifested, and in front of me is what? Honoration, and then behind me is honoration. So when you're writing, you want to have like that three-dimensional visualization of what you're writing, because when you write your ancestor's name, you are encapsulating the spirit of that ancestor inside of the name. Thus, every time you write the name, you are preserving the life, the afterlife of that person. Make sense? Okay. So first you have the Netra, is getting the offerings. Then you have the Aku or Yaku, that's the ancestor. After this, you have what's called the reversion of offerings. So reversion is where you give a physical offering, and the spirit partakes of the spiritual part of that physical offering, and then the physical is given to the people who are living. So I'll add a third dimension to the Ankiyu. Ankiyu are us, the living ones. So there's three parts to it. So first, you start with nature, ancestor, and then the living ones. Reversion of offerings. And remember that the Hotep Sut is a ritual. It is a ritual. Now, if you want to do this ceremony for ancestors in general, you could use Emu Hat. So Emu Hat means those who came before. Emu Hat. And if you need to pluralize the Ma'karu, it would be Ma'u Karu. Ma'u Karu. So it is those whose voices are true. You can do that. So this concept of the reversion of offering, we're gonna swing back to that. But I want you to think about this. Starting from the Old Kingdom, again, that's dynasties actually 3 through 6. Okay, that's the Old Kingdom. What makes such a person worthy to even have that ritual done for him or her? Okay. So they get into declarations of virtues, why they deserve this, why when you walk by, should you stop and pour libations for that person? They'll list why. They give their obituary, if you will. So let's start with the Tuma Harkuf. He's from the 6th dynasty. We should know these names, especially as Kemetic practitioners. So 6th dynasty under Mesut Mertenrab and Pepi II. Now, Harkuf, he was a governor in ancient Upper Kemet, and his tomb is located in the West Bank at Aswan, by the First Cataract. So we're going to read some passages, and even though this is inside of a tomb, but it gives us an idea or a clear picture of what should be done while you are alive. He starts off in one of his stanzas. Today I came from my town. I went down into the afterlife. I have built my own house. I set up doors. I dug my pool. I have planted trees. Okay? So planting trees, I think that's things that we could do. You plant trees. You're starting new life. If we want to interpret it like we plant trees, I'm planting seeds in other people's minds, but you're physically doing the same. The king has favored me. My father was made a will for me. So if my father made a will for me, that's something that we should do today. I know my wife, she'll mention to me, hey, let's think about the ideas of having a will and what does that mean, okay? So right here, he's saying, my father made a will for me, meaning his father set him up for success. Okay? I am an excellent person, beloved of my father and favored by my mother. So stop. So it's not just my father and X out the mother. They include both parents. Whom all his siblings always loved. I gave bread to the hungry, clothes to the naked, and I brought to land him who had no boat. Stop. So this is called community service. So if you are a Kemetic person, if you claim such, then according to this culture, then you should be giving food to people who don't have food. If you claim to be Kemetic, then you should be giving clothes to people who are less fortunate than you. See, being Kemetic is not just about let me get on Facebook and catch a name for myself that sounds good and get some sound bites or copy and paste something, put on Facebook and I'm Kemetic and just throw on an ankh. No. Being Kemetic means that you have a moral and ethical responsibility to community, moral and ethical responsibility to your family. That's what that means. And the text clearly shows this. So gone are the days with pseudoism, where people can make things up without legitimacy or foundation in reality. So if you want to be Kemetic, then you need to look at what Kemetic people do. Why were they so successful? How did they last so long? And then it's, I brought to land him who had no boat, meaning that I made a way for other people. I used my resources to make a way for other people. So if you are Kemetic, then you have to use your resources, be it monetary, be it intellectual property, your talent, your skills to make a way for other people. If not, then what are we doing here? Okay? Let's keep going. Oh, you who live on earth, who shall come across this tomb of mine. So in other words, those you are going by, you see this tomb. So he's speaking from the grave. 1,000 of bread and 1,000 of beer for the owner of this tomb. So he's referring to the Hotep Dinasuit. Then I shall watch over them in the necropolis. Stop. Feed me, then I will be a spirit and I will look after you. I will be a spirit that's going to help you while you are alive. So it's a symbiotic relationship. Remember, y'all, we don't have to make up anything. Okay? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Okay?
And that based off of that text is not even required for you to be related to that person, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and he's saying, he didn't say my children. He said, oh, you passerbys. Okay. Then I shall watch over them in the necropolis, for I am an excellent and well-equipped Ak. So that's that that light or ancestor, both apply. A lector priest. He was a curry head who knows his spells. It's like our right? All right. With regard to any man who shall enter this tomb in an impure state, I will see if you are not physically clean or morally clean, both. And he shall be judged for it by the Netra'ah, the great God. I am a speaker of perfection and a repeater of what is desired. So a speaker of perfection, which is Neferu. So that's Medu Nefer. So Medu Nefer is good speech. So when you're talking about a topic, you should be educated on the topic. Not, oh, I just read about it yesterday, and now I have the free reign to get on Facebook to act like I'm an expert. No, it don't work. That's not Medu Nefer. Because when you're questioned about it, testing the spirit, testing the psyche, then you don't really know how to respond. Or if you're taking someone else's talking points. You take someone else's talking points, but you yourself did not study the topic. So you kind of feel like, oh, I can take these talking points and maybe I'll get the same response as the person who actually thought of and processed that information, put it together. It doesn't work that way. So Medu Nefer is someone who's wise, right, and exact in their knowledge. I never said anything evil to any great one against any man. So this is the declaration of innocence. I have not done something. But this part's not specifically in the 42, if you will, even though it can apply. So basically he says, I haven't been talking trash about somebody. Okay? So now when you go on social media, you get a lot of people who just talk trash, right? So he's saying, this is I don't do this because I wish my name to be perfect in the sight of the great Necha. I never judged between two parties. In other words, he did not misconstrue the arguments in the case where his son was deprived of his father's inheritance. In other words, he didn't cheat somebody out of their inheritance. So we know in this country you have a lot of that going on. People who would cheat us out of our inheritance from the past few hundred years. I never, an offering which the king gives and an offering to Anpu. So again, that's that Hotep Dinasuit again. So it repeats in his tomb. So that's Harkuf. And then we have another man named Pepi Ankh during the same time period. He was 100 years old. He was a Hem-Necher of Hathor, or Het-Heru, if you will. So you can be a Hem-Necher, because he's a man, of a goddess. And this is his title, Hem-Necher in Het-Heru. Okay? Or if it was a woman, it would be Hem-Necher of Het-Heru. Okay? So the Hem-Necher is dependent on the gender of that priest, not the deity being served. Okay? is the gender of the priest. So I would be a hem netcher in Ra. Right? My wife, she would be a hemet netcher in Ra. Okay? So when people make arguments, they have to come correct. We have to have the grammar right. Because if you're saying this is a sacred language, if this is the liturgical text, then is it not worth your time and mental energy to get the grammar correct? Okay? Get the grammar correct. Because I would never address my mother as he or him. So if I'm gonna give the same respect to the goddess, I wouldn't refer to the goddess as him or he. It's disrespectful, and vice versa. So treat the spirit the same as you do a living person, because they're equal in importance. So in the Tomb of Pepi, he says, never did I pass the night angry with people because of their behavior towards me. I think we have some rules like that, right? We don't say, don't go to bed angry with your spouse, etc. Because see, the thing is, psychologically, the mood you're in, the thing that dominates your thoughts before you sleep, you're taking that into your subconscious, and you wake up with that from your subconscious. So you want to go to bed, you want to sleep with resolution. So that really stood out to me. That's rule. Never did I pass the night angry. Even if the person did you wrong, then it doesn't mean you don't address it. It means you address it, you resolve it, and then you can sleep. Mind you, I didn't say anything about forgiving. I don't even know if there might be a word for forgiving, Kim, I don't know. But it's about resolution. So we don't do I forgive you, and then it lets the person off. They feel better. Like, oh, okay, so that person's not going to smack me back, so I'm cool. No, it needs to be resolution. Okay? Whatever form that takes, use your imagination. Because that's my eye. My eye is not, turn the other cheek. No, that's not what this is. Then you have the tomb of Saboni, appeared under the rulership of Nasut Pepi II. He said, I have given bread to the hungry, clothes to the naked. I have ferried the boatless in my boat. So again, he's using his own resources to help another person get to shore or get to their level of success. I have never stolen a thing from a man. I never envy any man for his possessions. Okay, mind you, there's no Pertim Heru yet. This is still the old kingdom. Okay? Because what comes in the Pertim Heru evolves from these texts. It's in the culture, so it's an evolution. So there's no thing where, we create a holy book and then it stays that way. See, remember, life is always in a state of keperization. So keper is, we go to the verb, it means to change, to be. But then as a noun, keperu, evolution, okay? Evolving, becomingness. Life is ever becoming. So we're always adding on to the sacred text. It is a living text. Just like in Sheshe Ba, we have the Odu Ifa. In Odu Ifa, we have Odus that are constantly being added, or verses. So we have the basic number, 256, but inside of the 256, there's verses that are constantly added because life continues. Let's jump to the 11th dynasty. We go to the Tablet of Jari. He says, I'm a great provider for the homeland in a year of distress. One I knew not like the one I knew. Let's say that again. He says, I have nourished one I knew not like the one I knew. This is talking about human equality, y'all. He's saying that even if I don't know this person, I know the vizier under the dual king Menkaperah, Shahudi III. So that's 18th dynasty. He says, I exalted my eye to the heights of heaven. I caused its goodness to pervade the breadths of the earth, so that it rested in the nose like the north wind. I judge the humble and the rich alike. Let's go back to this equality. Now, mind you, this is the new kingdom, okay? This is over about 1,000 years later. He is saying, I judge the worth of a person no matter what they have monetarily. So if you're a poor person or if you are a rich person, I judge them equally by their moral standard, not by how much money that person has. Just like when we go back to the old kingdom with Ptahhotep, he says, be not arrogant because of your knowledge, to counsel with the ignorant as well as with the wise. For wisdom has not been reached by anyone, and it can be found amongst the maze of the grindstones. So you take counsel with the ignorant as well as the wise, because their intrinsic value is the same, and wisdom can come from anywhere. The universe is your teacher. He said, I rescued the weak from the strong. Stop. He said, I don't like bullies. Right? So we don't like bullies over here. So we will rescue the weak from the strong. I restrain the rage of the evil of character. So if you have an evil character, you put it down, however way that looks to you. I suppress the greed in his hour. While the person is doing their crime, while that person is doing wrong, you stopped it in its tracks. You didn't wait, oh, let me just pull him to the side. I don't want to get no heat. No, you stopped it right there. I protected the widow who had no husband. So he's protecting women who have predatory men who might take advantage. So he stepped in and he protected. And established the son and heir on the seat of his father, meaning he's helping with inheritance. I gave bread to the hungry, water to the thirsty. So bread to the hungry. So we know that this is physical. So we have to do both. We have to physically give bread, and then we have to mentally give bread. We have to physically give sustenance, and we have to mentally give sustenance. He said, water to the thirsty. You have to give water to those who are thirsty, and you have to give water and feed those who are thirsty for knowledge and direction. Meat, oil, and clothes to those who had none. So, I get it. If some are vegan and vegetarian, yes, do that. However, it does not reflect the culture, okay? So we have to be accurate, okay? So he gave meat. By the way, there's never pork in the offerings. So I was going to let that be known. There's never, ever pork in. There's no hog or none of that. So the idea of having a taboo against pig did not start with the Hebrews. And we have the evidence. These things are still there, okay? So again, respect to their tradition, however, they did not create it. I made the old man secure. Stop. So he's looking after elders, giving him my staff. What is that, my staff? Meaning that he will step aside and give way to an elder. I remember at one point when the Sut Rasan Kukeper gave his platform, Rasamah Sapatah, we affectionately call Baba Haru. He said, this is my platform. You know, with the Barry White voice, said, this is my platform. But then he gave his platform to the elder, and he dropped to one knee in reverence to the elder. I hated evil. I did not do it. I was justified before the nation. I was not neglectful. Okay. Even to the Kong tradition, they say you feed the shrine because the shrine houses the spirit. So you have to feed the house. You got to feed the spirit. For us, we might say a per. It's another word for house, an enclosure. Okay? That is a shrine. Kira is the word for shrine. And we put things upon the kaut, that table, the table, food for them. And when we feed them, then they feed us. This is the origin of saying grace. Okay? When you say grace at the table, the short version from Christianity, it actually evolves out of these rituals. So that's a watered down version. And in fact, it's barely even a reversion of offering. because you're just saying, I thank you for it, but you're not feeding your ancestors first, as far as the words are concerned. But we know we do that anyway. We set a small plate aside so our ancestors can partake of the essence of the food, because we share, it's still part of our family. All right, lastly, you have what's called the ritual of Amenhotep the first. So Amenhotep the first of the 18th dynasty, he was the second king of the 18th dynasty. His throne name is Jesekara Amenhotep. So in this text, it talks about the reversion of offerings. In fact, the word for reversion, there's a term for this. It's wajed. So the glyphs are very important. So in one of the versions, it's a stick with string on it. So a stick with string on it, it spins in a cycle, because the idea of reversion, everything moves in cycles. And then another sign that's inside of wajed is a cloth that's like a folded cloth, not the S, but it's a different type of cloth. So think about this. When you lay down cloth or a cover and then you fold it back, you fold it this way and you fold it this way, that idea of reversion. So reversion is where something comes back to you. So you fold out and you fold towards you, and it folds this way, and then it keeps folding. So that's the origin of the idea, okay? And it's inside of the word. So the secret in manufacture is right in front of you. You just have to learn how to read them. Papyrus is a plant, and we know plant, you grow it, and if it starts to go bad, you can cut it and turn it upside. You can reverse it and put the top into the soil and water, and then it'll continue to grow. So the reversion of offerings. So let's do one more short reading. So in the ritual of Amenhotep the first, in that papyrus, one of the things it says, I am the priest. I have come to make the offerings which are made for Amen, Lord of the thrones of the two lands, and Amenhotep. Thy divine offerings revert to you. So that word, revert. So the deity gets fed, ancestor, and then the living get fed. So wajed, as a philosophy, reversion of offerings, to put it as far as our conclusion, it is a lane in the path of ethical behavior. So when we do the Hotep Dinasut, philosophically, we're also receiving as well. Because if your family is fed, then you're fed. If your ancestors are fed, you're fed. Okay? So it's a constant cycle. So we do this out in the community. So when we help others, then in turn we get helped. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We already have these things. There's an entire philosophy, whole rituals that can be interpreted as living a life of reciprocity during that time. Close out. So place your arms in a cow position. Okay. Women, left over right. Men, right over left. Dianu, Ankujasana.
Dianu, Ankujasana.
Come out. Finish. Okay, and then you come in from the heart, bring it down to the solar plex, down to the knees, down to the feet. Right leg, stop. All right, do it.
Thank you to our YouTube and Facebook audiences for your time and energy and your donations today that you send us in reciprocity for the words of wisdom shared by the Session of Sue. Donations can be sent by Cash App to $ Temple of Anu. You can also send donations by PayPal or Zelle using our email address, which is templeofanu@gmail.com. Dua everyone, Shamim Masad.
Shamim Masad.